So should I start? Hi, my name is Tom. Okay, great, I did that. So I'm based in New York. I work at Brookhaven National Lab as a, I guess my title's computational scientist or something like that. I do downstream image analysis and x-rays, but I'm here to talk today about matplotlib. So that's all my contact information. If you want to find me on the internet, it's pretty easy. And if you have questions, you should. And just as a warning, this notebook requires the current master branch, plus I merged 5 open PRs into that branch, plus fixed a bug. So this talk is a bit of a preview for the stuff that is coming in 1.5 in the future, less about what's in there now. But, matplotlib is alive and well. We're very much an active project. We just signed an FSA with NumFocus, which gives us the possibility of start doing fundraising to start addressing some of the concerns Nick was talking about, of being able to have full-time people doing the continuing engineering to make sure we stay healthy. What did you do? Okay. Currently, we do have a very broad contributor base. If you do these commands, you can scrape Git, the Git logs. Why aren't you getting smaller? Okay. So this is a cumulative graph of commits. We've had 355 contributors since January of last year. If you look at those commits over time, we have we're pretty steady. We don't have too many horrible spikes, so we're definitely an active, healthy project. Oh, come on, Come on, notebook. If you look at various other stats, we're widely used. Numbers are a little terrifying, but and it's a very large mature code base. You didn't work out. There you go. It's close to 100,000 lines of code, and the first commit we have in the repository is from 2003. It's a very old project. So near-term schedule, as I said, we're in Future Freezer 1.5. I'd hoped to have an RC out at the end of last month, but as things go, that did not happen. There's 4 or 5 things that we're currently blocking on, and once those are in, we'll tag an RC and see how that goes. And the other big thing coming is we are going to do a style-only 2.0 release. Our definition of back compatibility is if the code generates the same picture at the end. That's what our output is. So changing something like the default color map, which is currently Jet, which is a very bad color map, which you should never use, ever. Changing the default is a major API change for us. So 2.0, we're going to do no new features, no new nothing, just nothing but default color changes. And if you have opinions about that, please tell us. Because we'd like to do this once and then not do it again. And you probably have like about a week left before we start making those decisions. So if you leave us an issue on GitHub, that would be great. And please tell your friends. Let's see. Okay, so now the first part of this, from here on, the rest of it is basically going to be demos of cool things that are either in the library or are coming. Anyone have any questions? No. Yes. Yeah. That's off of SourceForge. Yep, and if you look at the systems we have analytics on the web page, it's about 40% Windows, 23 Linux, 23 Mac, or whatever, in that ballpark that actually adds up correctly. So yeah, we have also, if any of you are Windows developers and you'd like to contribute to matplotlib, we would love to have a core Windows developer because we don't really have one right now. Basically, we rely on Christoph Gohilk to find strange Windows bugs for us, which works surprisingly well. So something that has been in since 1.4.3, or 1.4, and it got a bunch of updates in 4.3, so this is probably on all of your computers right now, is if you're working in a Python notebook, there is, you can do I have it up here? You can do %matplotlib notebook, and you will get a live figure in your notebook, right? You can pan this thing, zooming works, and if you notice it's cycling colors, because this actually captures all the mouse and keyboard events. So if you have any desktop GUIs that you've built on top of our matplob's event stack, you can now get to that through a notebook as well. Oh, and this is just a fun thing that I did for Fernando. Sorry, this is basically a little text editor implemented on a figure. So, you know, whatever crazy things you want to do with events, you can probably do it. Show you this is, you know, faking things. Our 3D support works. Browser. This is an example pulled out of our, just copy and pasted out of our documentation. This is the Mandelbrot set, and the one on the right, as you zoom in on it, it'll give you a box of the one on the left. So, yeah.
So when you generate these, can you share the static notebook online and have people still interact?
No. So the interaction requires a live server in the back end. So when you save it, they turn whatever state it's in, that gets saved as a ping and embedded in the notebook, just like inline now. So, but if you use one of the, you know, if you hosted notebook services are coming, and like if you log into tempnb.org, you can do this on tempnb. Another fun thing that we completely failed at advertising appropriately is the style module. So this is something from Tony Yu, which basically allows you to selectively apply a subset of the RC params files to your current configuration. So again, this current list is what's on master. There's fewer in the current release, but you can do things like tell it to use the Seaborn style. And this will ship with 1.5, and you'll just be able to do style.use and get all the Seaborn styling without installing an extra package. The other fun thing about this, which if my computer has successfully connected to the internet, is that this will take anything that looks like a path. So what this did is this actually went out to just grab the style sheet from there and then applied it. So this is an example from one of my colleagues who his advisor had very particular opinions about how plots should look. And every time he got feedback, he'd go put it in the style sheet, and he just had this import at the top of every one of his files, and then every graph he made after that would never get that criticism again. So that's the end of the 1.4 things I was going to demo. So I'm sure many of you are aware, we kind of have a split API. We have the pyplot interface, which is basically cloned from MATLAB, and then we have the object-oriented API, which is used to implement the pyplot interface, and is what we strongly encourage you to use for scripting. But for REPL work, it's much more annoying because you have to type plt.draw all the time to get it to update. Big thing we've added is that we now auto redraw. So changing anything about any of the objects in the graph, well, that state gets trickled up, and can trigger a redraw. We have some default handlers that are installed, but if you're embedding, we don't automatically force a redraw, so you can introspect our figures and figure out if you need to trigger the redraw on your own cadence. Getting this right is one of the blockers for getting 1.5 out. There was some discussion of details. Just a very cute thing is this is a small quality of life thing that someone added, is that for bar plots you can now add tick label as a list of strings, and if you get your fonts right, you can use emoji. If you, yeah, I mean, so, yeah, ordered list for legends. You can put whatever label string you want on the artist, and when you call legend, you'll introspect and get them correctly. So I give a latent orchestra cycler, which I'm just going to go through this quickly. This is a cute little composable thing for easily generating sequences of dictionaries to pass into things that you can unpack star quargs into, or star quargs. And this is in fact the exact demo I showed yesterday. But you can see with very few lines of code, I've basically done simple faceting. This also gives you a chance to show off another fun thing we've added, is that in IAMShow, a constant request has been to show the pixel value. And you see, if you look in the lower right corner, as I move the mouse around, the value in the square brackets is the pixel value. It's currently implemented on images, but the hooks are in there so any artist can report something back to the message to be included in that bar. So it'd be possible, for instance, it would be possible to implement a line subclass that knows to report its label in the bar when you mouse over it. And another big thing that, again, this is a blocking feature for 1.5, is we now support, we will support very basic label data support plotting natively. So the syntax is mirroring my understanding of R very closely. Any place you would pass in an array right now, you can pass in a string. And then if you pass in the data quarg, which can you can assign to anything that supports get item with a string, and that what it returns is something that's kind of like a NumPy array. So you can see. So that's. Oh, and this you asked. This does legend smartly. And this, again, as I said before, I think this is a path to a feature we get requested frequently is faceting. So combined with cycler and the ability to pass in strings, you see this. The code for this facet plot is 10 lines. And right now all I'll do is plotting, but it'd be very easy to generalize this a bit and be able to pass a function in that takes some number of string arguments and your data quark and does something with it. And probably not for 1.5, but probably for 2.1. Hopefully we'll have some nice built-in general tools for that. Maybe, we'll see how that goes. I don't want to promise that. Oh, yeah, also, and obviously, all the auto live update works. I can make everything black just by setting the color. Right. You see, there's a long list of things that we have that I'm not going to talk about. For the next release, which we're targeting probably for next April or March or April. So right now we kind of have our own JavaScript thing we shove into the notebook. We really want to integrate tightly with the widgets to make it very easy to build kind of rich applications in the notebook. I want to talk about container classes and serialization. We are working with a summer student from, or not a summer student, a student of Ryan Granger to make, the idea is to make all of our artists configurables, which is so they'll have traitlets on them, which means you can now simply ask all of our artists what their important properties are, which gives us a very easy path to proper serialization. So be able to save a figure to a text file without pickling it, and then load it back up and reconstruct that figure you had previously again. Which is a major feature we've been lacking for a long time. It also provides an easy integration path between matplotlib, Bokeh, Plotly. Because if we can, we've been talking with those other projects, and it looks like we'll be able to settle on some minimum description of what's in a plot to easily convert which plotting the user wants to use. Sorry, you've let me get up here and talk, so I'm going to soapbox a little bit. I really strongly encourage people to to use matplotlib as a substrate to write more domain-specific plotting tools on top of it for yourself, right? In my day-to-day work, I find there's 15 plots I make. They involve a bunch of artists. They're pretty complex, but I make the same 15 plots all the time. And you really should encapsulate that in a function that is a signature that looks something more or less like this. The first argument you should take is an axis, so you know where you're going to put your data or where you're going to put your artists. The second should be, it could be one data, it could be multiple data, it could be a data frame, whatever you want to put in there, whatever makes sense for your application. And then at the end, a bunch of style that's going to be passed through. And if we stick to something that more or less looks like that as a signature, switching between whose plotting code you're using will be a little less jarring, and just try to bring some rough order to the plotting APIs that are floating around. And the other critical thing is to return the artists that you added. And the next example makes clear why this is useful. So this is a little function that takes in a data frame, looks at the columns, and plots a bunch of lines for all the columns, and does some nice labeling and such. This is a bunch of code for widget factory stuff that you shouldn't read. This is something you write once and hide someplace. And this will get better once we get better integration with the widgets, because the widgets will just be able to ask the figure what it has, and then we can auto-generate these interfaces. Oops, come on. Oh, because I forgot to run that cell. There we go. So we get this, and then we can do this. And now you've got this interaction where you can see I can change the line width. So you can build very rich plotting, interactive plotting tools very quickly with this. And if you return the axis from your plotting methods, you have no idea what the interesting artists are in there. So if you look at the axis, it has all the tick labels, all the spines, everything's in there. And sorting out what is the interesting things that you want to start working with, it becomes very difficult. And if you really have just the, and these also now become composable functions, so you can write higher-level functions that do create the figure, that create a collection of axes, and then you use 4 of your own functions to very easily make whatever complicated high-level plot you want. How am I doing on time? Good. All right. I guess this also comes back to where do I see matplotlib being in the community in the next 5 to 10 years? And I think that the usage is significantly beyond what the core developers' domain expertise is, right? Like I'm a physicist. We have a bunch of meteorologists, some astronomers. We don't have anyone who does finance. We don't have any machine learning. We don't have any, I'm sure there's 5 fields in this room that I don't even know are fields that use matplotlib. And we really need to start working with people from those communities to help them build plotting tools for their communities. Because a lot of the feedback we get is people say, oh, ggplot is great. You just throw things in and it does the right thing. But the right thing it does is very specific to stats and to the type of work that those people are working on. And at the bottom layer, we can't make those assumptions. We have to be much more general. But we need to make sure we can enable people to build cool stuff on top of it. So if that sounds all interesting to you, please come talk to me. We're always looking for more help. Related, directly responding to what Jessica said about getting the top of the pipeline in, is our beginner documentation is I would say rough, but it's and with the rise of notebooks, basically everyone in this room who uses matplotlib day to day is probably qualified to write the intro tutorial to matplotlib. So if that is at all interesting to anyone, again, please come talk to me. We would love to work with you on that. And so with that, I guess I should end with thank yous. Obviously, a great debt to John Hunter, who started this project. And then the 355 people who have committed in the last year, year and 3/4. So that's. questions? Anything you want me to go back to?
Just wanted to get some more insight onto the R world.
So so I'm not super familiar with R. I mostly know about ggplot from people telling me that matplotlib is not as good as ggplot. I think matplotlib is more powerful because it makes many fewer assumptions. However, it's kind of like the chairs. We've given the users too much freedom. I don't quite know enough to answer the question, but it's a lower level, more based plotting library than ggplot. Does that make sense? Right, like you can't throw a data frame at matplotlib and have it do the right thing, which makes you plot with blah blah blah. You have to tell it I want to plot this column against this column against that column. And there is a ggplot2 project by Yhat, which attempts to replicate the ggplot2 interface in Python on top of matplotlib. I know very little about it, so I can't say how well it does or that. And there's also Seaborn, which is a statistics, a library focused on doing statistical plotting that I think does a lot of the same types of things. Does that answer your question at all? Oh, I use Symbala. So it's this line here where I just go through and set the font on the ticks. No? I mean, so that's right. I mean, at the bottom, all plotting is drawing patches and lines and dots, and we can do that. The question is how easy or hard is it to draw the kind of plot you want as the user? And again, this is where it comes into domain-specific things, because there's kinds of plots that have, the domains have spent years developing what these plots, and they are very information dense, and you should not trust me to write that for you. But I'm pretty confident that if you show me a plot, I could figure out a way to reproduce it. It might not, it might be 50 lines, but I could figure out a way to reproduce it. To what? There's not a link to this notebook because it requires, to make it run, you need to do a lot of local merging. Because I was trying to demo all the things that are coming, not what we have on master. I will try to put it. If you check my gist, I'll try to get it. I'll try to get a version of it up today. Oh, I got 5 minutes. Oh, well, I went real short.
So the call for changing default still open?
Yes, because we did. There was some miscommunication, and Mike is on vacation. About a week. 2 weeks. I mean, we're probably not going to make any decisions on that till 1.5 is out the door. So that's just due to developer bandwidth. Anyone have pain points they want to complain about? Oh, I signed up for the open room at 3, so if anyone wants to come complain in a less public setting. Oh, okay.